first light of dawn crept across Naval Amphibious Base Coronado like a thief painting the Pacific horizon in shades of amber and gold. The morning air carried the salt-heavy breath of the ocean, mixing with the distant rumble of helicopter rotors somewhere beyond the hangars. At precisely 0600 hours, Kira Ashlyn Brennan stood alone in Communications Room 7. She was 26 years old, 5'2", auburn hair pulled back in regulation fashion, secured tight enough to survive a hurricane. Her green eyes moved across the tactical displays with the calm precision of a surgeon examining vital signs. To anyone watching, she was just another technician, just another support staff member running through morning equipment checks, just a radio girl. The MBTR tactical radio hummed beneath her fingers as she cycled through encrypted frequencies. Check the range, verify protocols, test backup channels. The ritual was as familiar as breathing, yet she approached each step with the kind of discipline that most people reserve for life or death situations. Because for Kira, Brennan, discipline was not a choice. It was inheritance. Her father had made sure of that. The memory surfaced without warning, sharp as broken glass. She was 8 years old again, standing in the backyard of their Montana ranch. The Remington 700 rifle felt enormous in her small hands, impossibly heavy for a child. The summer sun beat down on her shoulders, but she did not complain. She never complained. Her father knelt beside her, his weathered hands guiding her grip on the stock. Master Chief Nathaniel Brennan, SEAL Team 2, a man built from granite and gunpowder with eyes the color of winter storms. Feel that firefly. His voice was rough as gravel but warm as summer rain. That is 6 pounds of trigger pull. When you master this rifle, you master yourself. Breath control, patience, the ability to make one moment count for everything. She had fired 17 rounds that afternoon. By the end, she could place 3 consecutive shots within a 2-inch grouping at 200 yards. She was 8 years old. 3 weeks later, her father deployed to Iraq. She remembered standing on the porch watching his truck disappear down the dirt road, dust rising behind it like a funeral shroud. She had wanted to cry, but she did not cry. Brennan women did not cry. He never came home. November 14th, 2006, Ramadi, Iraq. An ambush during a routine patrol. The official report said he died instantly. The official report said he was a hero. The official report said a lot of things. Kira blinked, forcing herself back to the present. The SATCOM terminal beeped, confirming uplink with the military satellite network. She logged the status in the duty ledger, her handwriting precise and economical. Behind her, the door crashed open with enough force to rattle the encryption key cabinet. Well, well. Early bird gets the worm, huh, radio girl. Sergeant Colt Mercer filled the doorway like a wall of muscle and arrogance. He was 6'3", 235 pounds of what he clearly believed was pure American fighting man. His uniform stretched tight across shoulders he had built in the base gym, where he spent more time admiring his reflection than actually training. Kira had seen his service record. 3 deployments, 0 confirmed combat engagements. The kind of soldier who talked about war like it was a video game he had mastered. She did not turn around. Sergeant, the equipment is ready for today's operations, all systems nominal. That is real sweet, sweetheart. Mercer swaggered into the room, his boots heavy on the linoleum. But maybe you should stick to your radios and leave the fighting to men who actually know what they are doing. You know the operators, the ones who do real work. She felt his eyes crawling across her back, that particular quality of male assessment that reduced her to categories. Too small, too young, too female. Never mind that she held a top-secret clearance. Never mind that her communication protocols had coordinated 17 successful operations in the past 6 months alone. Never mind any of it. Kira turned to face him, her expression arranged into the neutral mask she had perfected over years of this particular brand of contempt. Is there something you need? Sergeant Mercer grinned, revealing teeth too white to be natural. Just making sure you know your place, darling. Commander Thornton and his boys are wheels up in 4 hours for a real mission. Grown-up stuff. He leaned closer, his breath sour with coffee and entitlement. Superman is going to be busy saving the world. Who is going to save you while he is gone? Let them think you are weak, then strike. Her father's voice clear as if he were standing beside her. I will make sure all communications equipment is mission ready, Sergeant. Will there be anything else? Something flickered behind Mercer's practiced smirk. Confusion, maybe. He had expected her to bristle, to react, to give him the satisfaction of having gotten under her skin. Her calm robbed him of that victory, and he did not know what to do with it. Yeah, there will be. He jabbed a finger toward her face. You just remember who the real warriors are around here. And next time, show some respect. He turned on his heel and left the door slamming behind him with adolescent emphasis. Kira waited until his footsteps faded down the corridor. Then she allowed herself one long, slow breath. Her hands, she noticed, were perfectly steady. They were always steady. The drive from the base to the small house on Oleander Street took 11 minutes through the quiet morning streets of Coronado. Kira parked her Honda Civic in the driveway and sat for a moment watching the sun climb higher over the palm trees. The house belonged to Sergeant Major Silas Harmon, retired, 62 years old, former sniper instructor at the Naval Special Warfare Center. And for the past 18 years, the closest thing Kira had to a father. She found him on the back porch cleaning a disassembled M40A3 rifle with the careful attention of a man performing a religious ritual. His gray hair was cropped close to his skull, military precision even in retirement. The scar that ran from his left eyebrow to his jaw had faded to silver over the decades, a souvenir from a mission he never talked about. Coffee is hot, he said without looking up. You are early. Kira poured herself a cup from the pot on the porch rail and settled into the chair across from him. The Pacific glittered in the distance, endless and indifferent. Could not sleep. Jace deploying today tonight. 1800. Silas nodded, his hands never pausing in their work. The rifle components gleamed in the morning light, each piece fitted to the next with mechanical perfection. Your father could not sleep before deployments either. Used to drive your mother crazy, pacing around the house at 3 in the morning? Kira watched his hands move across the weapon. Those hands had trained 3 generations of Navy SEAL snipers. Those hands had held her when she was 9 years old, standing at Arlington National Cemetery, watching them lower her father into the ground. Silas. She set down her coffee cup. I need to ask you something. Ask. The mission in Ramadi, the one where Dad died. You told me once that something about it did not feel right. What did you mean? Silas's hand stopped moving. For a long moment he stared at the disassembled rifle, his jaw working beneath the weathered skin. Why are you asking about this now? Because I have been having dreams. The same dream over and over. Dad's voice on the radio. Static. Then nothing. Kira leaned forward. You knew him better than anyone. You served together for 30 years. If something was wrong with that mission, you would know. Silas set down the rifle barrel with exquisite care. When he looked at her, his eyes held a weight she had never seen before. I have never told anyone what I'm about to tell you. Not Jace, not the investigators. No one. He took a deep breath. The intelligence that sent your father's team into that ambush was too perfect. Exact location, exact timing, exact number of hostiles. In 30 years of combat operations, I have never seen intel that clean. What are you saying? I am saying someone gave them to the enemy. Someone on our side. The words hung in the air between them, heavy as lead. Someone betrayed him. I have spent 18 years trying to prove it. 18 years hitting dead ends and classified walls. Silas's voice cracked the only time Kira had ever heard it do so. Your father was my brother in everything but blood, and I could not save him, could not even give him justice. Kira reached across the table and gripped his hand. Do you have any idea whose suspicions? Nothing concrete. He shook his head slowly. The officer who provided the intelligence was promoted 6 months after your father's death. Full colonel now. Still active. Who? Silas met her eyes. Victor Ashford. The name meant nothing to Kira, just a collection of syllables. But something in the way Silas said it made her blood run cold. I have never had proof, Silas continued. Just an old soldier's gut feeling. And gut feelings do not hold up in military tribunals. Kira stared at the rifle components scattered across the table. Her father's rifle. The weapon he had carried through Desert Storm and Somalia, and a dozen other conflicts that never made the history books. The weapon that now sat in Silas's gun safe, waiting. You said once that Dad wanted me to have this rifle, that he told you before he deployed. Silas nodded. He said when she is ready, give it to her. She will know what to do with it. Am I ready? The old man studied her face for a long moment. Whatever he saw there seemed to satisfy him. Not yet. He began reassembling the rifle with practiced efficiency. But soon, I think. Very soon. The apartment was quiet when Kira returned. She climbed the exterior stairs to the second floor, her boots making hollow sounds on the metal steps. The door opened before her key touched the lock. Commander Jace Thornton stood in the entrance, his solid frame backlit by the afternoon sun streaming through the living room windows. 41 years old, 6 feet of lean muscle and accumulated scar tissue, gray threading through dark hair cut high and tight. His blue eyes were the color of deep water, and right now they held the particular intensity that meant he was running combat calculations in his head. He was wearing civilian clothes, jeans, a faded navy t-shirt. In a few hours, he would put on his combat gear and disappear into whatever classified nightmare the Navy had cooked up for SEAL Team 5. "Hey," he said. His voice carried that particular roughness that came from years of shouting orders over helicopter rotors and gunfire. "Hey, yourself." Kira closed the door behind her and dropped her bag. The apartment was small but clean. Their books lined the shelves in alphabetical order. Their weapons were locked in the safe in the bedroom closet. Their life together existed in the spaces between his deployments and her shifts measured in stolen hours and interrupted dinners. "I wanted to see you before Wheels Up," Jay said. "Brief just ended. We are Oscar Mike at 1800. Oscar Mike, on the move. Military speak for the constant motion that defined their lives." Kira moved into the kitchen, filled a glass with water from the tap, drank it in one long pull. Through the window above the sink, she could see a slice of the Pacific gray-blue and eternal. Where cannot say. The usual answer. Classified destination, classified duration, classified everything. He would be gone for anywhere from 3 days to 3 weeks with zero communication possible until he walked back through that door. This was the rhythm of their marriage. Presence and absence like breathing. She turned to face him, leaning against the counter. Mercer was his usual charming self this morning. Jace's jaw tightened. What did he say? Nothing I have not heard before? Radio girl. Real warriors. The usual. She kept her voice light. Matter of fact. He asked who was going to save me while Superman was away. I will talk to him when I get back. Do not. Kira crossed the small space between them and pressed her palm flat against his chest. I can handle Mercer. I have been handling men like him my whole life. Jace covered her hand with his own. You should not have to. Maybe not, but I do. She looked up at him. Besides, I learned from the best. Dad always said the people everyone underestimates are the ones who change history. At the mention of her father, something shifted in Jace's expression. He glanced over her shoulder at the photograph on the bookshelf. The picture showed 2 men in desert camouflage arms around each other's shoulders, grinning at the camera with a particular brand of happiness that comes from having survived something terrible together. Nathaniel Brennan and Jace Thornton. Ramadi, Iraq. October 2006. 4 weeks before Nathaniel died. He made me promise, Jace said quietly. The night before that last patrol, we were on the roof pulling security. He started talking about you, about how smart you were. How strong. He said if anything ever happened to him, I needed to look out for you. Make sure you did not let the bastards grind you down. Kira's throat felt tight. You have kept that promise. Trying to. His thumb traced a gentle circle on the back of her hand. But you make it easy. You are the strongest person I know, Kira. You just hide it better than most. The moment stretched between them, weighted with all the things they had learned not to say. About the randomness of death. About the fragility of the life they had built together, about how every deployment could be the last one. Jace broke the silence first. I should go. Pre-mission brief at 15:30. Kira nodded. They had done this dance enough times to know the steps by heart. She walked him to the door, stood on tiptoe to kiss him. His arms wrapped around her strong and warm and temporary. Stay safe, she whispered against his chest. Always do. A lie they both pretended to believe. Love you, Firefly. The nickname hit her like a fist to the sternum. Her father's name for her, the one Jace had adopted after Nathaniel's death, a bridge between past and present, love you too. Then he was gone, and Kira was alone in the apartment that suddenly felt too quiet, too empty, too much like a preview of a future she did not want to imagine. She lasted 45 minutes before the walls started closing in. The beach stretched empty in both directions as Kira ran. Her feet pounded a steady rhythm into the packed sand, each stride carrying her farther from the thoughts that chased her. The afternoon sun had turned the ocean into hammered gold, and the salt wind burned in her lungs like medicine. She ran until her legs screamed and her chest heaved, and the anxious energy coiling in her gut had nowhere to go but out through her pores. By the time she returned to the apartment, showered and made a half-hearted dinner of scrambled eggs and toast, full dark had fallen. Jace would be airborne by now, gone into whatever black operation the government had deemed necessary for national security. Kira sat on the couch with her laptop trying to focus on the online logistics course she was taking to boost her promotion prospects. The words swam on the screen, refusing to resolve into meaning. Victor Ashford. The name Silas had spoken kept circling back through her mind. A colonel who had been promoted after her father's death. A man who might have betrayed his own people for reasons she could not imagine. She should research him, pull up his service record, try to find the connections Silas had spent 18 years searching for. Instead, she closed the laptop and stared at the photograph on the bookshelf. Her father's smile, Jace's arm around his shoulder, two men who had trusted each other with their lives. One of them had come home. At 22:27 hours, her phone rang. The sound cut through the silent apartment like a gunshot. Kira grabbed the device, her heart already hammering before she saw the caller ID. Colonel Victor Ashford, base commander. Ice flooded her veins. Commanders did not call in the middle of the night unless something had gone catastrophically wrong. Her finger trembled as she swiped to answer. "This is Brennan." "Kira." Ashford's voice was smooth, practiced, the kind of tone refined over decades of command. "I apologize for the late hour. There has been a development. I need you to come to the base immediately." "What kind of development, sir?" She was already moving, pulling on clothes with one hand while cradling the phone with her shoulder. "Is it Commander Thornton? Is the team okay?" "Everyone is fine. This is a separate matter." A pause calculated to reassure. "Communication equipment failure in the primary operations center. We have assets in the field that need coordination, and you are the only technician cleared for this particular system." She stopped moving. Something in his voice. Something wrong. "Sir, should the duty officer not handle this?" "This is time-sensitive, Kira. How quickly can you get here?" She glanced at the clock. 22:28. 15 minutes, sir." "Good. Report to Building 47. Warehouse District. The side entrance will be unlocked. I will brief you when you arrive." The line went dead. Kira stared at the phone, her tactical brain already identifying the wrongness of the situation. Building 47 was in the restricted warehouse sector, not the operations center, and communication failures always had backup protocols, redundant systems, procedures that did not involve calling a single technician at 10:30 at night. "Trust your gut, Firefly, always." Her father's voice, clear as the day he had said it. Kira crossed to the bedroom closet, to the gun safe bolted to the floor in the back corner. Her fingers input the combination on autopilot. 11/14/06. The date her father died. Inside the safe, wrapped in an oiled cloth, lay the Beretta M9 that had been Nathaniel Brennan's sidearm for 23 years of service. Jace had given it to her on their wedding day, had pressed it into her hands with tears in his eyes and said this was what Nathaniel would have wanted. She had never carried it, never needed to, until now. Kira lifted the pistol, felt the familiar weight of it settle into her palm, checked the magazine. 15 rounds of 9mm hollow point, the kind that expanded on impact and did not overpenetrate. She chambered a round, engaged the safety, and slipped the weapon into her waistband at the small of her back. Covered it with an untucked flannel shirt. Probably paranoid. Probably nothing. But her gut was screaming. The drive to the base took 11 minutes through deserted streets. Kira badged through the main gate, returned the sleepy guard's wave, and navigated the labyrinth of access roads toward the warehouse district. This sector was always quiet at night. The massive buildings sat dark and silent, like sleeping giants. Building 47 stood at the far eastern edge, separated from its neighbors by 100 yards of empty tarmac. No lights showed in the windows. No vehicles in the parking lot. Kira killed her engine and sat in the darkness, listening to the silence. Every instinct she possessed was telling her to drive away, to call someone, to do anything except walk into that building. But if there really was a communication failure, if there really were assets in the field who needed her expertise, she could not live with herself if someone died because she had been too scared to do her job. She climbed out of the Civic, clicked the door shut quietly. The night air was cool against her skin, carrying the salt and fuel smell of a military base at rest. The side entrance was unlocked, exactly as Ashford had said. Kira pulled the door open and stepped into absolute darkness. She had perhaps half a second to register the wrongness before they were on her. Hands grabbed her arms with professional efficiency. A hood dropped over her head, plunging her into blackness. She felt plastic zip ties cinched tight around her wrists before she could even think about reaching for the M9. Do not fight. A man's voice. American accent. Texas, maybe. Make this easy on yourself, sweetheart. Sweetheart. The word ignited something primal in Kira's hindbrain. She drove her heel down on someone's instep, felt the satisfying crunch of small bones breaking. The man cursed, his grip loosening for half a second. Not enough. Another set of hands grabbed her from behind, and then she was airborne, lifted bodily off the ground. She thrashed, trying to remember the escape techniques her father had taught her, but there were too many of them. Too strong, too professional. Feisty little thing. The Texas voice again, closer now. The colonel said you might be trouble. Guess he was right. A vehicle door opened. They threw her inside onto a hard metal floor that smelled of oil and gunpowder. The door slammed shut. An engine roared to life. Through the hood, Kira heard multiple voices speaking in rapid-fire Russian. Not American military, not a drill, not a misunderstanding. This was real, and she was utterly, completely alone. The vehicle lurched into motion, and Kira's mind began the automatic process her father had drilled into her from childhood. Count the turns, track the time, build a mental map, right turn, 5 seconds of straight driving, left turn, another straight section, this one longer, maybe 20 seconds. The rumble of tires changed pitch, suggesting transition from asphalt to concrete. Still on base. They were still on base. The realization was somehow worse than if they had left. This was not a random abduction. This was planned, coordinated, supported by someone with authority to move freely through a secured military installation in the middle of the night. Colonel Ashford. The name surfaced in her mind with absolute certainty. His phone call, the isolated location, the timing, right after Jace deployed. This had been a trap from the beginning, and she had walked right into it. The hood came off in a cavernous warehouse. Kira blinked against the sudden fluorescent glare, her eyes adjusting to reveal industrial shelving units stretching 30 feet high. Wooden crates stenciled with military designation codes lined every surface. M240B machine guns, AT-4 rocket launchers, Javelin missiles. Enough firepower to equip a small army. 6 men surrounded her. 4 wore the digital camouflage of Russian military, their AK-12 rifles held with the casual competence of professional soldiers. The other 2 wore American uniforms, but something about them was wrong. The way they stood, the cold calculation in their eyes. One of them was Sergeant Colt Mercer. He grinned when he saw recognition dawn on her face. "Hey there, radio girl. Told you to stay in your lane." He stepped closer, his smile widening. "Guess you should have listened." Before Kira could respond, footsteps echoed from deeper in the warehouse. 2 more figures emerged from between the shelving units. Colonel Victor Ashford walked like a man who had never doubted his right to command. 59 years old. The kind of weathered handsomeness that came from a lifetime of outdoor service. His uniform was immaculate. Ribbons and badges precisely aligned. Silver star, bronze star with V device, purple heart, the decorations of a war hero. Kira had met him exactly twice before, both times at official functions. Both times he had shaken her hand and said appropriate things about honoring her father's memory. She had thought he seemed kind. The man beside Ashford was harder to read. Mid-40s, Slavic features, a scar that ran from his right eyebrow to his jaw, pulling one corner of his mouth into a permanent half-smile. He wore civilian clothes but carried himself with military precision. Ashford stopped 10 feet away, studying Kira with the detached interest of an entomologist examining an insect. "I am sorry it came to this," he said, and he almost sounded like he meant it. "You are collateral damage, Kira. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong husband. What did you do with Jace?" The words came out steady despite the fear turning her blood to ice water. "Where is SEAL Team 5? Somewhere safe. For now." Ashford clasped his hands behind his back. "Parade rest. They are not the problem. You are the problem. Or rather, you will be if I let you live long enough to become one." The man with the scar spoke for the first time. His English was heavily accented but precise. "Colonel, we waste time. Kill her now. Dispose of body. Simple. Patience, Dimitri." Ashford did not look away from Kira. "I want her to understand first. Call it a professional courtesy to Nathaniel Brennan's daughter." At her father's name, something cold and sharp crystallized in Kira's chest. "What about my father?" Ashford gestured to the warehouse around them. "Do you know what we have here, Kira? The inventory of Warehouse 9 represents approximately $63 million in U.S. military hardware. M240 machine guns, Javelin missiles, AT-4 rockets, enough C4 explosive to level a city block. All of it slated for destruction according to official records. Obsolete equipment being decommissioned." He smiled. And Kira saw the truth of him in that expression. The kind of corruption that had rotted from within so gradual that the man had convinced himself it was justified. "Except none of it is actually obsolete," Ashford continued. "It is all fully functional, worth a fortune to the right buyers. And my friend Dimitri here represents buyers with very deep pockets." "You are selling military weapons to the Russians." Kira's voice was flat. "You are a traitor. I prefer to think of myself as a pragmatist." Ashford's tone remained conversational. "Do you know what they pay lieutenant colonels, Kira? What they pay full colonels, it is insulting. Decades of service, 3 Purple Hearts, a Silver Star. And what did I get? A dead wife, a bankrupt retirement account, a government that used me up and threw me away." His voice hardened. "I earned this. Every cent. So you sold out your country, your brothers, everything you swore to protect." "I survived." Ashford took a step closer. "Which is more than I can say for your father." The words hit Kira like a physical blow. "What does my father have to do with this?" Ashford's expression shifted. Something almost like regret crossed his face. "Ramadi, November 14th, 2006. Nathaniel Brennan's last patrol." His voice was soft now, almost gentle. "I was supposed to be with him that day. Did you know that? But I had to stay back. Command duties. So I sent your father's team to clear a suspected insurgent safe house based on intelligence I had received." Kira could not breathe, could not move, could not do anything but stare at Ashford's face as he delivered the words that rewrote her entire history. The intelligence was wrong, or rather, it was exactly right. I had been paid $50,000 to send an American unit to that specific location at that specific time. Ashford's expression was almost compassionate. Local insurgents wanted to make a statement. I provided them with targets. The warehouse spun. Kira's vision narrowed to a tunnel with Ashford's face at the center. "Your father died because of me, Kira. My very first deal. Crude by today's standards, but it taught me an important lesson." He paused. "Loyalty is a commodity, like anything else. And Nathaniel Brennan's loyalty cost him his life." "Murderer." The word echoed in her skull. Louder than her heartbeat, louder than the blood rushing in her ears. Her father had not died serving his country. He had died serving Victor Ashford's bank account. "I see you understand now." Ashford adjusted his uniform jacket. "I will leave you with that understanding. Consider it a gift. At least you will know the truth before you die." He turned to walk away, then paused. "Your husband and his team are being held in cell block D, level 3. At 200, Dimitri's men will execute them and dispose of the bodies. A tragic training accident." He glanced back at her. These things happen more often than you would think. And me? You made the mistake of being too observant, too smart. Ashford pulled her phone from his pocket, waggled it gently. We cannot have that. So unfortunately, you are going to suffer the same training accident as your husband. He pocketed her phone. Dimitri, make sure she is secured. I want her alive until OR 200. Insurance in case Commander Thornton proves difficult to manage? The Russian nodded. Of course. Ashford walked away, his footsteps echoing across the concrete floor. A door opened and closed, and he was gone. Kira stood in the center of the warehouse, surrounded by armed men, her hands bound, her father's murderer walking free, and somewhere in the maze of this base, her husband was waiting to die. Mercer stepped forward, his earlier swagger replaced by something uglier. Your SEAL husband is not here to save you, princess. He turned to the Russians, gesturing toward a metal chair bolted to the floor near the far wall. Get her secured. The colonel wants her alive, not comfortable. They dragged her across the warehouse floor. Kira did not fight. She was calculating, observing, building a tactical picture of her environment the way her father had taught her. 4 Russians, 2 Americans, 6 total hostiles, all armed with automatic weapons, multiple exits but all likely secured. No windows at ground level, concrete floor, metal shelving units providing potential cover. And underneath the chair they were forcing her towards, she glimpsed something that made her heart stop. A square green box with a digital timer display. C4 explosive. The timer read Orduate 30 Zerwonro, 8.5 hours. They shoved her into the chair, used more zip ties to secure her ankles to the chair legs. Mercer checked the restraints, personally pulling them tight enough that the plastic bit into her skin. Comfortable. He leaned in close, his breath hot on her face. You have got about 8 hours to think about how you should have stayed in your lane, sweetheart. Then you and this whole warehouse are going to be nothing but a smoking crater. Evidence disposal. Clean and simple. He straightened up, grinning. But hey, look at the bright side. You will get to die just like your daddy, sent into a trap by the same man. His grin widened. That is poetry right there. The 6 men retreated to positions around the warehouse. 2 near the main entrance. 2 more flanking a smaller door to the left. Mercer and 1 Russian took up station near what looked like a supervisor's office elevated above the main floor. Then the lights dimmed to half power, and relative silence fell. Kira sat in the metal chair, wrists and ankles bound, a bomb ticking beneath her, her father's murder fresh and raw in her mind. Jace was going to die. She was going to die. Ashford would continue his treasonous operation, selling American weapons to America's enemies, and no one would ever know the truth. Her father had died for nothing. She would die for nothing. Unless... Kira closed her eyes, forced herself to breathe slowly. 4 seconds in through the nose. Hold for 2. 4 seconds out through the mouth. The rhythm her father had taught her for controlling fear. When you are scared, Firefly, that is when you are most dangerous, because scared means you have nothing left to lose, and a person with nothing to lose is capable of anything. She opened her eyes. The warehouse stretched before her, vast and full of shadows. The timer beneath her chair ticked down with mechanical indifference. 8 hours and 27 minutes now. 8 hours and 27 minutes to do the impossible. Kira Ashlyn Brennan, daughter of Master Chief Nathaniel Brennan, began to plan. The first 15 minutes were the hardest. Kira sat motionless in the metal chair, her breathing steady and controlled, while her mind cataloged every detail of her prison. The warehouse was approximately 200 feet long by 100 wide. The ceiling disappeared into shadows 40 feet above. Industrial shelving units created a maze of corridors, each loaded with wooden crates bearing military designation codes. $63 million in weapons, enough to start a small war. The 6 guards had settled into a rotation pattern. Mercer and the Russian near the elevated office seemed to be the command element, watching the main floor through grimy windows. The other 4 moved in pairs, 1 pair circling clockwise through the shelving maze, the other holding static positions near the exits. Professional, disciplined, dangerous, but not perfect. Kira closed her eyes and let the memory of her father guide her hands. The magic trick. the summer afternoon in Montana when she was 7 years old. Her father holding up a pair of plastic zip ties, grinning at her like he was about to share the greatest secret in the world. Want to learn something useful? Firefly 20 repetitions that afternoon. Her wrists bruised, her arms aching. But by the end, she could break zip ties with 90% reliability. She had learned, and she had never forgotten. Kira tested the restraints carefully, keeping her movements minimal. The zip ties around her wrists were standard military issue, rated for 200 pounds of tensile strength, tight enough to restrict blood flow if she did not move carefully. Her ankles were similarly bound to the chair legs. Those would be harder to address. But first things first, Kira took stock of what she had. Her flannel shirt, jeans, boots, no phone, no knife, no obvious tools. The M9 that had been tucked into her waistband was gone, confiscated during the initial struggle, but they had missed something. In her hair, secured with careful positioning, were 3 bobby pins. Her father had taught her to always carry improvised tools. You never know when you will need to pick a lock or shim a restraint. Something small, something they will not think to search for. Kira began working her head from side to side, a movement that could be mistaken for discomfort or restlessness. She felt the pins shift in her hair, carefully dislodged by the motion. It took 8 minutes of patient effort before one pin slipped free and fell into her lap. She froze, watching the guards. None of them had noticed. Kira arched her back slightly, creating slack in her bound wrists, used her thumb to maneuver the bobby pin into her palm. The metal was thin and flexible, perfect for what she needed. Shimming a zip tie required inserting something narrow between the ratchet teeth and the locking bar. The bobby pin was just wide enough. She bent it open with her fingers, feeling for the right angle, then began the delicate process of working it into the tiny gap in the restraint. Patience Firefly, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. 23 minutes after they had secured her to the chair, Kira felt the bobby pins slide home between the ratchet and the lock. She applied gentle upward pressure while simultaneously pulling her wrists apart. The zip tie loosened, not broke, not released, just loosened enough that she could, with careful manipulation, slide one hand free. Kira kept both hands behind her back, maintaining the appearance of being fully restrained. Her heart hammered against her ribs, adrenaline singing through her bloodstream. She forced herself to breathe slowly, to think tactically. One hand free was progress, but she was still ankle-bound to a chair, surrounded by armed men, in a warehouse rigged to explode. The timer beneath her chair would read approximately 07:52 now. She needed to move faster. Kira retrieved a second bobby pin from her hair, this one requiring less finesse now that one hand was mobile. She leaned forward as if in discomfort, using the motion to mask bending down toward her ankles. The zip ties on her legs were visible to anyone who looked directly at her position. She would have to work by touch alone, keeping her upper body still while her free hands snaked down to her right ankle. Lockpicking was a matter of feel and patience. Kira inserted the bobby pin, probed for the locking mechanism, applied pressure. The first tie resisted. She adjusted the angle. Tried again. Click. The restraint loosened. Her right ankle was free, though she kept her foot in position to maintain the illusion of captivity. She was reaching for the restraints on her left ankle when footsteps echoed across the concrete floor. Kira jerked upright, slipping her hand back into the loosened wrist restraint. She arranged her face into an expression of resigned fear, the mask of a helpless victim. Mercer emerged from the shadows, his M4A1 slung casually across his chest. He had removed his combat vest, shirt sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms thick with muscle and a tattoo of an eagle clutching lightning bolts. He looked relaxed, confident, predatory. "How you doing over here, radio girl?" He stopped 10 feet away, arms crossed, getting comfortable. "You have got a long wait ahead of you." Kira said nothing. Her father had taught her that silence was often the best weapon against men who fed on fear and reaction. Mercer frowned, denied the response he wanted. He stepped closer. "I asked you a question, sweetheart. It is rude not to answer when someone is talking to you." Still, Kira remained silent, her green eyes fixed on a point somewhere past his shoulder. "Strong, silent type, huh?" Mercer was 5 feet away now. "That is cute. Real cute. But let me tell you something about your situation. Nobody knows you are here. Nobody is coming to save you. Your SEAL husband is locked in a hole on the other side of this base, and in a few hours he is going to be just as dead as you are. He leaned in, his face inches from hers. So if I were you, I would be real friendly to the guys who decide how comfortable your last few hours are going to be. You understand what I'm saying? Kira met his eyes for the first time, held his gaze without blinking. When she spoke, her voice was steady, cold as winter ice. My father was Master Chief Nathaniel Brennan, SEAL Team 2. He taught me that men like you are all the same. You talk tough, act tough, but you have never actually been tested. You are a garrison soldier playing dress-up. Mercer's face flushed red. You little. He also taught me that the people everyone underestimates are the ones who change history. You and Ashford made a mistake. You underestimated Nathaniel Brennan's daughter. Mercer straightened up, one hand dropping to the pistol on his hip. And what exactly are you going to do about it? Tied to a chair? Kira smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. This. She drove her freed right foot up and forward in a devastating snap kick that caught Mercer directly in the groin. He folded with a strangled gasp. Kira was already moving. Her left hand ripped free of the loosened restraint and grabbed for the K-bar knife sheathed on Mercer's belt. The blade came free with a whisper of steel on leather. She slashed through the remaining ankle restraint and rolled out of the chair as Mercer lurched toward her, his face purple with rage and pain. He was still twice her size, still stronger, still dangerous despite being hurt. But Kira had surprise and 20 years of training that most people had never suspected existed. Her father had started teaching her Krav Maga when she was 6 years old, not the watered-down civilian version taught in strip mall dojos, the brutal, efficient combat system designed for Israeli special forces. Every technique aimed at vulnerable targets, every movement designed to end fights quickly. Mercer swung a wild haymaker. Kira ducked under it, stepped inside his guard, drove the heel of her palm up into his nose. Cartilage crunched. Blood exploded across his face. She followed with a knife hand strike to his throat, not hard enough to crush his windpipe, but enough to make breathing difficult. He staggered back, trying to bring his rifle around. Kira was faster. She swept his legs with a low kick, sent him crashing to the concrete floor. The M4 clattered away across the smooth surface. Kira dove for the rifle. Her fingers closed around the pistol grip just as Mercer grabbed her ankle and hauled her backward. She twisted, bringing the K-bar around in a desperate slash that opened a gash across his forearm. Mercer roared in pain and rage. His fist caught her in the ribs, a blow that drove the air from her lungs and sent white sparks across her vision. But Kira held on to the knife, held on to consciousness, held on to the cold clarity that combat demanded. She brought the knife up and buried it in Mercer's thigh, aiming for the vastus lateralis muscle, deep enough to disable, not deep enough to hit the femoral artery. She needed him alive. For now. Mercer collapsed, clutching at the wound, blood seeping between his fingers. "You crazy bitch," he gasped. They heard that. "They are coming." Kira grabbed the M4A1, checked the chamber. Loaded. Safety off. 30 rounds in the magazine. She pulled 2 spare magazines from Mercer's vest, shoved them in her pockets. Footsteps pounded across the warehouse floor. Multiple sets, moving fast. Mercer looked up at her, something new in his eyes now. Not anger, not contempt, fear. "You are not just a radio girl." Kira met his gaze. "No, I am the daughter of Nathaniel Brennan." She shot out the nearest overhead lights with 3 precise bursts, plunging a third of the warehouse into darkness. Then she moved, using the shelving units for cover, navigating by memory in the faint glow of emergency exit signs. The warehouse became a maze of shadows and steel. Somewhere behind her, Mercer was screaming for help. Ahead, she heard rapid conversation in Russian. The guards were coordinating, moving to box her in. Kira reached into the pocket of her tactical mind where she had stored every detail of the warehouse layout. During the drive here, during her time in the chair, her brain had been building a 3-dimensional model based on sound and glimpses and tactical reasoning. She knew approximately where the exits were, where the guards had been positioned, where the primary concentration of weapons crates was stored. She needed to even the odds. Kira found what she was looking for on a shelf at eye level. A wooden crate stenciled M67 fragmentation grenades. She used the K-bar to pry the lid open, grabbed two of the green metal spheres, continued moving. A figure appeared at the end of the aisle, backlit by emergency lighting, Russian judging by the uniform. He raised his AK-12, shouted something. Kira was faster. 3-round burst. Center mass. The man went down hard. Guilt tried to surface, but Kira pushed it away. These men had been prepared to execute her, to murder Jace and his entire team. They had made their choices. She was simply surviving the consequences of those choices. She grabbed the fallen Russian's radio, clipped it to her belt. The device crackled with urgent voices. She could not understand the words, but tone and urgency were universal. They were coordinating a sweep pattern, trying to pin her down. Kira pulled the pin on one of the M67 grenades, cooked it for 2 seconds, rolled it down a perpendicular aisle away from her position. She covered her ears, opened her mouth to equalize pressure. The grenade detonated with a flat, brutal crack that echoed through the warehouse like thunder. Smoke and dust billowed. Somewhere, someone screamed. Kira moved in the opposite direction, using the chaos as cover. She climbed onto a shelving unit, scrambled up to the second level where she had elevation and lines of sight. Below, 3 remaining guards moved through the smoke. 2 Russians, 1 American. They were being cautious now. Professional. The grenade had taught them she was dangerous. Kira steadied the M4 against the metal shelving, controlled her breathing the way her father had taught her. Her heart rate dropped from combat high to something manageable. Her vision sharpened. The American guard moved into her kill zone first. She did not recognize him. Just another traitor. Another man who had sold his oath for money. She put the red dot sight on his center mass and squeezed the trigger. 3-round burst. He dropped without a sound. The 2 Russians dove for cover, but Kira had already shifted position, moving along the top of the shelving unit like a shadow. She had spent half her childhood climbing trees in Montana, had learned to move silently across uncertain terrain. The metal shelves were just another obstacle course. 1 Russian broke cover, trying to flank her last position. Kira dropped him with a headshot from 30 yards. Clean. Efficient. The way her father had taught her. The last Russian was smarter. He stayed in cover. Used his radio to call for backup. But there was no backup coming. Just him and Mercer, who was presumably still bleeding on the floor. Kira descended from the shelving unit in silence, circling around to come at the Russian from an unexpected angle. She found him crouched behind a forklift, his AK-12 aimed at the empty air where he expected her to be. "Do not move." She spoke in English. The barrel of her M4 centered on his spine. "Put the weapon down, slowly." The Russian froze. For a long moment, Kira thought he might try something stupid. Then he carefully placed the AK-12 on the concrete and raised his hands. "Turn around," he complied. Mid-30s. A face that had seen violence and dealt it in equal measure. His eyes were flat, assessing, looking for weakness. "You speak English, da?" "Yes." "Where is SEAL Team 5 being held?" The Russian smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "You think I tell you, you shoot me either way?" "Maybe, but I can shoot you in a way that kills you instantly, or I can shoot you in a way that takes 20 minutes. Your choice." The smile faded. He glanced at the bodies of his companions, at the blood pooling beneath them. When he looked back at Kira, there was a new quality in his eyes. Not quite fear, but close. Cell block D, basement level 3. He rattled off coordinates that matched the location Ashford had mentioned. Electronic lock. Code is 010111962. January 1st, 1962. The date the Navy SEALs were officially established. Of course Ashford would use that. Arrogant enough to think no one would ever breach his secure facility. "How many guards I do not know. I am warehouse security only." He hesitated. "But Colonel Ashford has many men loyal to him. Maybe 20, maybe 30. Kira processed this information. 20 to 30 hostile combatants between her and Jace. Plus whatever explosive surprises Ashford had arranged at Cell Block D. The Russian watched her think. "You cannot win. Too many. Too well armed." Maybe. Kira adjusted her grip on the M4. But I am going to try anyway. She shot him in the thigh, the same place she had stabbed Mercer. Painful but survivable. Crawl to your friend. Tie tourniquets. If you are lucky, someone will find you before you bleed out. She did not wait to watch him comply. The clock was ticking. Kira moved through the warehouse with purpose now, gathering supplies, more magazines for the M4, a tactical vest that almost fit, night vision goggles, a suppressed Beretta M9 that made her heart clench because it reminded her of her father's sidearm. From a crate marked Communications, she salvaged an MBTR tactical radio and a small GPS unit. From medical supplies, she grabbed combat gauze and quick clot bandages. Her ribs ached where Mercer had hit her. She was pretty sure at least one was cracked, but she could not afford to slow down. She found Mercer where she had left him, conscious but pale from blood loss. He had managed to tie a makeshift tourniquet using his belt. "You are making a mistake," he gasped as she approached. "Ashford has the whole base locked down. You are just one person. You cannot." Kira zip-tied his hands behind his back, using the same plastic restraints he had used on her. "Where is my phone?" "Ashford has it." "Command center. Where is the C4 control panel?" Mercer's eyes darted to the supervisor's office. "Up there. But you cannot disarm it. The Russian designed it. 14 different trigger mechanisms. You cut the wrong wire, you die. 12 detonation points. 14 triggers." Kira committed the information to memory. "Anything else I should know?" "Yeah." His voice was weakening. "You are going to die screaming." Kira stood, looking down at the man who had called her radio girl, who had underestimated her every step of the way. "My father taught me that the people everyone underestimates are the ones who change history. You and Ashford made a mistake." She paused. "And now you are going to pay for it." She left him there and climbed the metal stairs to the supervisor's office. The control panel was exactly where Mercer had indicated. A gray metal box mounted to the wall, its face bristling with wires and digital readouts. Kira photographed it with the tactical camera she had found in one of the equipment crates. She was not qualified to disarm this herself, but she knew someone who was, if she could reach him in time. Kira pulled the MBET radio from her vest, cycled through frequencies until she found one that was not filled with Russian chatter. She keyed the transmit button. "Ghost. This is Firefly. Do you copy static?" Then nothing. She tried again. "Silas. This is Kira. I know you are monitoring military frequencies. I need your help." More static. Then a voice she had known her entire life crackled through the speaker. "Kira, Jesus Christ, girl. Where are you?" What is happening? Relief flooded through her, but there was no time for it. "Ashford is a traitor. He has been selling weapons to the Russians for years. He is the one who betrayed Dad in Ramadi." A long pause. "I knew it." Silas's voice was tight with 18 years of suppressed rage. "That son of a bitch. I knew it. Listen to me. Jace and SEAL Team 5 are being held at Cell Block D. They are scheduled for execution at 0200. There is a bomb in Warehouse 9 set to blow in about 7 hours. I need you to help me. What do you need? Directions to Cell Block D and someone monitoring comms who can guide me through whatever I am walking into." Another pause, shorter this time. "I am pulling up base schematics now. Cell Block D is 800 meters northeast of your position. There is a maintenance access tunnel that runs from the warehouse district. Entrance is behind Building 43. Should be less guarded than the main approach." "Copy that." "Kira," Silas's voice softened. "Your father would be proud. More proud than you will ever know. You are doing what he trained you to do. You are being exactly who he raised you to be. Tell me that after I get Jace out." "You will." His voice hardened with absolute certainty. "Because you are Nathaniel Brennan's daughter, and Brennans do not quit." Kira smiled despite everything. "Damn right we do not." She clicked off the radio and descended from the office. The timer on the C4 read 07:04, 7 hours and 4 minutes. Kira checked her gear one final time. M4A1 with 3 magazines, suppressed M9 with 2 magazines, K-bar knife, night vision goggles, tactical radio, first aid supplies, enough to start a small war, or finish one. She slipped out of Warehouse 9 into the pre-dawn darkness. The base spread before her like a maze of shadows and sleeping buildings. Somewhere to the northeast, her husband was waiting in a concrete cell, counting down the hours until his execution. 800 meters, 20 to 30 armed guards, one woman. Kira started running. The maintenance tunnel was exactly where Silas said it would be. Kira found the entrance behind Building 43, a rusted metal hatch set into the concrete foundation. She pried it open with the K-bar, dropped into darkness. The tunnel stretched before her, narrow and damp, the walls slick with condensation. Emergency lights flickered at irregular intervals, casting pools of sickly yellow illumination. She moved quickly but carefully, checking every corner, every intersection. The night vision goggles turned the darkness into shades of green, revealing details that would have been invisible to the naked eye. Silas's voice crackled in her earpiece. You should be approaching a junction in about 50 meters. Left fork leads to the power plant. Right fork will take you to Cell Block D's basement access. Copy. Kira reached the junction, took the right fork. The tunnel sloped downward, the air growing colder, more stagnant. She was deep underground now, beneath the weight of the naval base, beneath the weight of 18 years of lies. The tunnel ended at a heavy steel door, marked with faded stenciling. Cell Block D, authorized personnel only. Kira tried the handle. Locked. She examined the lock. Standard military issue. 7-pin tumbler. Nothing she could pick with bobby pins. But she did not need to pick it. She punched in the code the Russian had given her, 01011962. The lock clicked. Kira pushed the door open and stepped into Cell Block D. The basement level was a warren of concrete corridors and steel doors, the kind of place designed to make people disappear. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in harsh white light. She moved down the main corridor, checking each cell through the small reinforced windows. Empty, empty, empty. The first guard appeared at the end of the corridor. He was young, early 20s, Russian uniform. He saw Kira at the same moment she saw him. His hand went for his radio. Kira's went for her suppressed M9. She was faster. The shot took him in the chest. He crumpled without a sound. Kira stepped over his body, kept moving. The next two guards were together, patrolling the intersection ahead. She heard their footsteps before she saw them. Russian voices, casual, bored. They were not expecting trouble. Kira pressed herself against the wall, waited. The first guard rounded the corner. She grabbed him by the throat, drove her knee into his groin. As he doubled over, she brought her elbow down on the back of his neck. He dropped. The second guard had half a second to process what was happening, half a second to raise his weapon, half a second to open his mouth to shout. Kira shot him twice in the chest. He fell backward, his rifle clattering on the concrete. The sound echoed through the corridor. Loud in the underground silence. Kira moved faster now, abandoning stealth for speed. She reached a stairwell, descended to the third level. The walls here were thicker, the doors heavier. Maximum security detention, where you kept prisoners you did not want anyone to find. Two more guards at the bottom of the stairs, both armed, both alert now. They opened fire the moment they saw her. Kira dove behind a concrete pillar. Bullets chipped the surface inches from her face. She returned fire, forcing them to take cover. Stalemate. She pulled her last M67 grenade from her vest, weighed it in her hand. The guards were shouting to each other in Russian, coordinating, preparing to advance. Kira pulled the pin, counted to 2, threw. The grenade bounced off the far wall, rolled behind their position. The explosion was deafening in the confined space. Kira was moving before the dust settled, through the smoke and debris, past the bodies of the guards, down the corridor toward the cells. She found what she was looking for at the end of the hall, a reinforced door with a biometric lock. And standing in front of it, calm as a man waiting for a bus, was Dmitry Reznikov. He held a Makarov pistol loosely in one hand, the muzzle pointed at the floor. The scar running down his face pulled his mouth into that permanent half-smile. Kira Brennan. His accent made her name sound foreign. You have surprised many people tonight. Mercer was fool. The guards are fools, but I am not fool. Kira kept her M4 trained on his center mass, Finger on the trigger, step away from the cell. Or what, you shoot me? Reznikov shook his head. I think not, because the moment you fire the charges I have placed throughout this level, detonate. Everyone dies, including your husband. A standoff. Kira's mind raced through the tactical calculus. If Reznikov was bluffing, calling it would end the threat immediately. If he was not bluffing, firing would kill everyone she had come to save. You are lying. Am I? Reznikov gestured with his free hand to a small device clipped to his belt. Dead man's switch. My heart stops, signal stops. Bombs explode. Simple. Elegant. Russian engineering. Kira's finger tightened on the trigger, but she did not fire. Reznikov was many things, but he was not a liar. The dead man's switch was real. What do you want to understand? You're a communications specialist. Little girl playing with radios. How do you become this? He gestured to the bodies littering the corridor behind her. 7 men dead, maybe more at warehouse. This is not normal. My father was Master Chief Nathaniel Brennan. He taught me to be more than what people assumed I was. Understanding flickered across Reznikov's face. Ah, the SEAL who died in Ramadi. Ashford's first betrayal. He nodded slowly. I see now. This is revenge. Personal. This is justice. Justice. Reznikov tasted the word like wine. Interesting concept. Ashford thinks he serves justice by selling weapons to highest bidder, bypassing politicians and their games. You think you serve justice by killing men who follow orders. He tilted his head. And me, I think justice is fairy tale we tell ourselves to sleep at night. Philosophy from a man holding a dead man's switch. How original. Reznikov's smile widened. I like you. In different world, we are perhaps allies. Both of us understand that survival requires difficult choices. I am nothing like you. No, Reznikov raised an eyebrow. You killed 7 men tonight. Maybe more. How many were just following orders? How many had families? But you killed them anyway, because they stood between you and what you want. This makes you like me more than you wish to believe. The words hit harder than Kira wanted to admit. She thought of the faces of the men she had killed. Young men, most of them. Somebody's son, somebody's brother. But they had made their choices when they chose to serve Ashford's treason. The difference is that I am fighting to protect people. You are fighting for money. Money, power, love, revenge. Reznikov shrugged. These are just different words for same thing. We all fight for what matters to us. Behind him, Kira heard a faint sound from the cell, a voice she knew better than her own heartbeat. Kira, is that you, Jace? Reznikov saw the reaction on her face and laughed. Ah, yes, love. Most dangerous motivation of all. Makes people do stupid things. Makes smart women walk into traps. Let them go. Kira's voice was steady. This is between Ashford and me. You do not have to die here. True, I do not have to die here. Reznikov's expression turned serious. But I also do not let you pass. So we have problem with no good solution. The moment stretched taut as a bowstring. Kira ran the calculations. Distance to target 12 meters. Reaction time to dead man's switch maybe half a second. Her shot placement would have to be perfect. Instant neurological shutdown. No muscle reflex. No dying twitch that would trigger the detonator. It was an impossible shot, but Kira had been making impossible shots since she was 8 years old. I am going to give you one chance. Walk away. Go back to Russia. Tell them Ashford is burned. The operation is compromised. You are a professional. You know when to cut losses. Reznikov considered this for a long moment. Kira thought he might actually take the offer. Then he shook his head. Ashford pays very well. And I am professional, yes. But I am also proud. I do not run from communications girl, no matter how many lucky kills she has. Then I am sorry. Her breathing steadied. The world narrowed to the space between her and the target. One breath, one moment, one shot. Kira fired. The suppressed round took Reznikov in the right eye, punching through the orbital socket and into the brainstem. Instant death. No reflex, no muscle spasm. He simply ceased to exist, his body dropping straight down like a building in controlled demolition. The dead man's switch clattered to the floor, still transmitting its heartbeat signal. Kira sprinted forward, grabbed the device, held the trigger down. As long as the signal kept transmitting, the bombs would not detonate. But her hand was now literally the only thing standing between everyone in this basement and oblivion. Jace. She reached the cell door, found the biometric lock. "Can you hear me, Kira? What the hell are you doing here?" Jace's voice was rough with emotion and disbelief. "How did you?" "No time. I am holding a dead man's switch. If I let go, we all die. There should be an override panel somewhere." Sounds of movement from inside the cell. Then Jace's voice, steady despite the insanity of the situation. "Found it. What is the code? 01011962. A pause. The lock clicked. The door swung open, and Jace Thornton stood in the doorway, still in his combat gear from the aborted deployment, his face showing the wear of 7 hours in captivity. But his eyes were alive with something Kira had never seen before. Wonder. Behind him, 10 more SEALs crowded the cell, all of them staring at Kira with expressions ranging from shock to admiration. Jace took in the scene with a single glance. The bodies in the corridor, the M4 in Kira's hands, the dead man's switch she held in a death grip. "We need to move," Kira said. "Ashford rigged Warehouse 9 with C4. Timer is counting down. We have maybe 6 hours before this whole base becomes a crater, and I cannot let go of this switch without triggering the charges on this level." Lieutenant Brooke Callahan stepped forward, the only other woman in SEAL Team 5. "Ma'am, with respect. What the actual, despite everything?" Kira almost laughed. "It is a long story. Right now we need to disarm a bomb, stop a treasonous colonel, and figure out how to defuse whatever Reznikov rigged down here." She looked at Jace. In that order. Jace stared at her for a long moment, taking in the tactical vest, the weapons, the blood that was not hers splattered across her clothes. "You did all this." His voice was barely a whisper. "Alone." Kira shook her head. "Not alone. Dad was with me the whole time." She held up the dead man's switch. "Now let us go finish what he started." Lieutenant Brooke Callahan took the dead man's switch from Kira's hand with the calm precision of someone who had defused bombs in 3 different war zones. "Hold it exactly like this." Kira demonstrated the grip, constant pressure on the trigger. "If the signal stops for more than 2 seconds, every charge on this level detonates." Callahan nodded, her fingers wrapped around the device with practiced confidence. "I have got it. Go save the base." Kira turned to face the assembled SEALs. 11 men and 1 woman, the most elite warriors in the United States military, and they were all staring at her like she had grown a second head. Jace stepped forward, his eyes moving across her face, reading the exhaustion and determination written there. "How many hostiles did you neutralize to get here?" 7 confirmed. "Maybe more at the warehouse." A murmur rippled through the team. Chief Petty Officer Davis, a massive man with a shaved head and a beard that would have made a Viking proud, let out a low whistle. 7 tangos, solo, with no backup and no extraction plan. Kira met his eyes. "My husband was in danger. My father's murderer was walking free. I did what needed to be done." Davis exchanged a glance with the man beside him. When he looked back at Kira, something had shifted in his expression. Respect. "What is the tactical situation?" Jace asked. His voice had shifted into command mode, the same tone she had heard him use 100 times before. Calm, focused, lethal. Kira pulled the tactical camera from her vest, showed him the photographs of the C4 control panel. "Warehouse 9 is rigged with 12 detonation points, 14 trigger mechanisms. Timer shows approximately 6 hours remaining. The bomb was designed by Reznikov. He told the guards it was impossible to disarm." Jace studied the images, his jaw tightening. He was not wrong. "This is beyond field EOD capability. We would need a full disposal team, specialized equipment, time we do not have. Then we cannot disarm it." "Not in the traditional sense." Jace looked up from the camera. "But we might be able to redirect it." "Explain." "The detonation points are wired in series. If we can access the control panel and reprogram the targeting parameters, we might be able to change what the bomb destroys when it goes off." Kira understood immediately. "We use Ashford's bomb against him." "Exactly. Target his command center, his escape routes. Turn his insurance policy into his death sentence. Lieutenant Commander Pierce, the team's second-in-command, stepped forward. What about Ashford himself? He will have security, backup plans. The moment he realizes we are free, he will run. He is planning to run anyway, Kira said. He told me he has contingencies, offshore accounts, safe houses. If he gets off this base, we will never find him. Then we do not let him get off the base. Jace turned to his team. Here is the plan. Alpha Element, 6 operators. With me to Warehouse 9. We secure the facility and reprogram the C4. Bravo Element, 4 operators with Pierce. You clear Cell Block D. Make sure there are no surprises waiting for Callahan. Then establish a security perimeter. He looked at Kira. You are with me? I was hoping you would say that. Jace allowed himself a small smile. The first she had seen from him since this nightmare began. Would not have it any other way, Firefly. The team moved out with the silent efficiency of predators. Kira fell into formation beside Jace, moving through the corridors of Cell Block D toward the surface. The bodies she had left behind served as waypoints, marking her path through the underground maze. Davis moved up beside her, his massive frame somehow silent despite his size. Ma'am, permission to speak freely. Granted. Your father was Nate Brennan, SEAL Team 2. Yes. Davis was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was rough. I was a new guy when he died. First deployment. He was the one who trained me, taught me everything I know about being an operator. He nodded slowly. I always wondered what happened to his daughter. He talked about you all the time. Said you were going to change the world someday. Kira's throat tightened. He taught me everything too. I can see that. Davis glanced at the bodies they were passing. He would be proud as hell right now. Just wanted you to know. They reached the surface exit. The pre-dawn sky was beginning to lighten in the east, pale gray creeping across the horizon like a tide. Silas's voice crackled in Kira's earpiece. Firefly, I am tracking movement at the command center. Multiple vehicles. Looks like Ashford is preparing for departure. Copy. Can you give me eyes on the helipad checking satellite feed now? A pause confirmed. Bell 412 on the pad. Rotors are cold, but I see a pilot doing pre-flight checks. Ashford is planning to fly out. Not if I have anything to say about it. Jace touched her arm. We need to hit the warehouse first. If we do not reprogram that bomb, none of this matters. Kira nodded. He was right. The tactical priority was clear, but every second they spent at Warehouse 9 was a second Ashford could use to escape. How long to reprogram the C4? If the control panel is as sophisticated as these photos suggest, Jace studied the images again. 30 minutes minimum, maybe longer. 30 minutes. An eternity in combat operations. Let us move. They crossed the tarmac in tactical formation. 6 SEALs and 1 communications technician who had proven she was something far more dangerous. Warehouse 9 loomed ahead, dark and silent. The door Kira had exited was still open, spilling a sliver of light into the darkness. Davis took point, moving through the entrance with his weapon raised. The rest of the team flowed in behind him, clearing corners, checking shadows. Clear, clear, clear. The calls echoed through the warehouse. One by one, the team confirmed that Kira had done exactly what she said she had done. The bodies were where she had left them. The wounded Russian guard had crawled to Mercer's position. Both men were unconscious now, blood loss taking its toll. Chief, Jace gestured to Davis. Secure the prisoners. Stabilize them if you can. I want them alive for interrogation. Copy that. Jace led Kira toward the supervisor's office. They climbed the metal stairs, entered the small room overlooking the warehouse floor. The C4 control panel waited on the wall, exactly as Kira had photographed it, wires and circuits and digital readouts. The timer display showed 05:47:23, less than 6 hours. Jace set down his rifle, pulled a multi-tool from his vest, began examining the panel with the focused intensity of a surgeon preparing for a delicate operation. This is military-grade encryption on the targeting system. Russian design, but American components. Probably sourced from Ashford's stolen inventory. Can you crack it? Maybe, but I need time. Time we do not have. Jace looked at her. Then I will work fast. He began the painstaking process of bypassing the security protocols, his fingers moving across the panel with practiced precision. Kira watched, unable to help, unable to do anything but wait. The radio crackled. Silas's voice, urgent. Firefly, we have a problem. Ashford just left the command center. He is heading for the helipad, vehicle convoy, 4 SUVs, at least a dozen armed personnel. Kira's blood ran cold. How long until he reaches the helicopter? At current speed, 8 minutes, maybe less. She looked at Jace. He had heard the transmission. His hands never stopped moving across the control panel, but his jaw was tight. Go! I cannot leave you. You have to. He glanced up at her. If Ashford gets airborne, everything we have done means nothing. He escapes, continues his operation from somewhere else, and your father never gets justice. Kira hesitated, torn between her duty to the mission and her need to stay beside her husband. Jay stopped working, took her face in his hands. Listen to me. I married Nathaniel Brennan's daughter. I knew exactly what that meant. He smiled, a gentle expression that seemed impossible in the middle of a combat operation. You are the strongest person I have ever known, Kira. Now go prove it. Finish what your father started. He reached into his tactical vest, pulled out something wrapped in cloth. Kira's breath caught in her throat. Silas gave this to me before the deployment, said I should give it to you when you were ready. He pressed the bundle into her hands. I think you are ready now. She unwrapped the cloth. Her father's rifle, the M40A3 that Nathaniel Brennan had carried through 23 years of service, the weapon he had used to teach her to shoot, the weapon that had been waiting for her. All this time, the stock was worn smooth from decades of use. The scope showed the careful maintenance of a man who understood that his life depended on his equipment. But it was more than a rifle. It was a legacy. He wanted you to have it, Jace said quietly. He told Silas before that last deployment, said you would know what to do with it. Kira lifted the rifle, felt the familiar weight settle into her hands, like coming home. I love you. I know. Jace turned back to the control panel. Now go kill that son of a bitch. Kira slung the M40A3 across her back, grabbed her M4, headed for the door. Davis. The big SEAL looked up from where he was treating Mercer's wounds. Ma'am, you are with me. Davis grinned, a fierce expression that showed exactly why he had survived 15 years in the teams. Thought you would never ask. They hit the tarmac at a dead run. The helipad was 800 meters to the north, across open ground. No cover, no concealment, just raw speed and determination. Silas's voice in her ear. Ashford's convoy just past the motor pool. 5 minutes to helipad. Kira ran faster. Her lungs burned. Her cracked ribs screamed with every stride. But she pushed through the pain, through the exhaustion, through everything that told her she should stop. Her father had run through worse. So would she. They reached a maintenance building 800 meters south of the helipad. Kira scrambled up the exterior ladder to the roof, dropped to her stomach, shouldered the M40A3, began setting up her shooting position. Davis took up a covering position nearby, his eyes scanning through binoculars. 847 yards to the helipad. The Bell 412 sat in the center of the concrete pad, rotors spinning up to takeoff speed, the pilot visible through the cockpit glass. Going through his startup sequence. 4 guards around the helicopter, scanning the perimeter. Professional, alert, but not alert enough. Kira settled into the shooting position her father had taught her. Prone, left leg bent for stability, right leg straight, rifle butt firmly in the shoulder pocket, cheek weld solid against the stock. Through the Schmidt and Bender scope, the world telescoped into crystalline clarity. She could see individual rivets on the helicopter's fuselage, could count the teeth in the pilot's nervous smile. Headlights appeared on the access road. 4 SUVs, moving fast, kicking up dust in their wake. Silas's voice. Convoy is 30 seconds out. Copy. Kira shifted her aim to the lead vehicle, tracked its movement, calculated the windage, the elevation, the lead required for a moving target. But she held her fire. Not yet. The convoy screeched to a halt beside the helipad. Doors flew open. Armed men poured out. taking up defensive positions around the vehicles. And then Colonel Victor Ashford emerged from the second SUV. He was carrying a metal briefcase, the kind designed to survive fires and explosions, evidence of his treason, his insurance policy, his ticket to whatever safe haven he had prepared. He walked toward the helicopter with the confident stride of a man who believed he had won. Kira tracked him through the scope. 847 yards, wind 14 miles per hour from the west, temperature 62 degrees, humidity 54%, target moving at approximately 3 miles per hour, lateral angle 17 degrees. She calculated without conscious thought. Windage 2.1 MOA right, elevation 8.3 MOA up, lead 12 inches to account for movement. Coriolis effect at this latitude negligible but present. The shot was impossible. A moving target at nearly half a mile, in gusty morning wind, with the pilot preparing for immediate takeoff. But Kira had been making impossible shots since she was 8 years old. Ashford reached the helicopter door, his hand on the handle, 3 seconds from escape. Kira exhaled slowly, let her breath carry away all doubt, all fear, all hesitation. At the bottom of her breath, in that moment of perfect stillness between heartbeats, she squeezed the trigger. The M40A3 roared. The .308 Winchester round traveled at 2,600 feet per second. Covering 847 yards in 1.4 seconds, it punched through the morning air, through the wind, through the distance that should have made this shot impossible, and it found its target. Ashford's head snapped back. The briefcase fell from his fingers. His body crumpled against the helicopter door and slid to the concrete, dead before he hit the ground. The guards scattered, panicked, looking for a threat they could not see. Davis let out a low whistle. 847 yards, moving target, crosswind. He shook his head slowly. That is the most beautiful shot I have ever seen. Kira worked the bolt, chambered another round. But there was no need. Colonel Victor Ashford, decorated war hero and traitor, was dead, killed by a radio girl with her father's rifle, from 847 yards away. Kira and Davis descended from the rooftop in silence. The helipad was chaos when they arrived, guards surrendering, the pilot with his hands raised, Ashford's body still crumpled against the helicopter door, blood pooling beneath him on the concrete. Kira walked past them all. She knelt beside Ashford's body, looked at the face of the man who had haunted her family for 18 years. In death, he looked smaller somehow, ordinary, just another old man in a uniform. The entry wound was clean, center of the forehead. The exit wound had taken most of the back of his skull. Instant death. No pain, no fear, no time to understand what had happened. More mercy than he deserved. Kira picked up the briefcase, opened it. Inside were files, photographs, account numbers, names of buyers and sellers spanning 4 continents. The entire architecture of Ashford's betrayal documented in meticulous detail. Davis crouched beside her. That is enough evidence to bring down 100 people. More than that. Kira closed the briefcase. This is proof that my father died for something, that his death was not random, was not meaningless. She stood, looked east toward Warehouse 9. We need to get back to Jace. They ran. The warehouse was secure when they arrived. SEAL Team 5 had established a perimeter. Mercer and the wounded Russians were under guard, awaiting transport to military detention. Jace met her at the door. His eyes went to the briefcase, then to the blood on her clothes, then to her face. Is it done? It is done. He pulled her into his arms, held her tight. She could feel his heart beating against her chest, strong and steady and alive. I heard the shot on the radio. Jace's voice was rough. Davis called it in. 847 yards. 847 yards. With your father's rifle, Kira nodded against his chest. He would have been proud. She pulled back, looked up at him. He is proud. I can feel it. Jace studied her face for a long moment. Whatever he saw there made him smile. Yeah, he said. I think I can feel it too. The bomb disabled. Jace held up a small remote, reprogrammed the targeting parameters, changed it from a timer detonation to manual only. When the disposal team gets here, they can take it apart safely. and Callahan Bravo element diffused the charges in cell block D about 10 minutes ago. She is fine. Everyone is fine. Kira felt something loosen in her chest, the tension she had been carrying for hours finally beginning to release. It is over. Almost. Jace looked at the briefcase in her hand. We still need to get that to NCIS, and there is going to be a lot of explaining to do. The bomb disposal team arrived an hour later. Specialists from Naval Special Warfare, experts who dealt with threats like this every day. They examined the control panel Jace had reprogrammed, ran diagnostics, checked every wire and circuit. The lead technician emerged from the supervisor's office with a grim expression. Whoever built this was a genius, he said. 14 independent triggers, 12 detonation points, anti-tamper mechanisms on every junction. He shook his head. If you had tried to cut any wire without knowing the exact sequence, the whole thing would have blown. But we reprogrammed it, Jace said. Changed the targeting parameters. The technician nodded. You did, and you did it perfectly. He looked at Jace with something like awe. I have been doing this for 20 years. I have never seen anyone crack a system this complex in the field. How did you do it? Jace glanced at Kira. Motivation, he said simply. I had the right motivation. The technician followed his gaze, saw the small woman with the wounded arm and the blood-stained clothes and the rifle slung across her back. He did not ask any more questions. The next several hours passed in a blur. Military police arrived, then Naval Criminal Investigative Service, then representatives from agencies whose names Kira did not recognize and probably was not supposed to know. She gave her statement 4 times, each time to someone with more stars on their collar than the last. The wounded were treated. Mercer and the Russian guard were stabilized and taken into custody. They would face courts-martial for treason. The evidence in Ashford's briefcase guaranteed convictions. SEAL Team 5 was debriefed, their aborted mission rescheduled, their near execution quietly classified at the highest levels. Kira's ribs required treatment. 2 of them were cracked just as she had suspected. The medic wrapped them tight and told her to take it easy for the next 6 weeks. She did not feel like taking it easy. She felt tired and empty, and strangely at peace. Silas arrived at the base hospital that evening, his weathered face drawn with concern. But when he saw Kira sitting up in her bed, alert and alive, something eased in his expression. Firefly. Ghost. He pulled a chair beside her bed, sat down heavily. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Silas reached into his jacket, pulled out a small velvet box. This was your father's, he said. They gave it to me after the funeral. I have been holding on to it ever since, waiting for the right time. He opened the box. Inside was a Navy Cross, the second highest decoration for valor in naval combat. Awarded posthumously to Master Chief Nathaniel Brennan for heroism above and beyond the call of duty. Kira's throat tightened. I cannot take this. You are not taking it. Silas pressed the box into her hands. You are inheriting it. There is a difference. He leaned back in his chair, his eyes distant. Your father told me once that legacy is not about the medals you earn or the battles you win. It is about what you leave behind, the people you shape, the values you pass on. He looked at her. You are his legacy, Kira. Everything good in him, everything brave and strong and true lives on in you. Tonight proved that beyond any doubt. Kira closed her fingers around the velvet box, felt the weight of it, the history. I wish he could have been here, she whispered. I wish he could have seen. He did see. Silas's voice was gentle but certain. He saw everything, and he is prouder of you than you will ever know. The tears came then, finally, after 18 years of holding them back. Kira wept for her father, for the childhood that ended too soon, for the questions that would never be answered and the conversations that would never happen. But she also wept with relief, with gratitude, with the overwhelming sense that something broken inside her had finally begun to heal. Silas stayed with her through the night, not speaking, just present, being the father she had lost, the mentor she still needed, the link to a past she could finally make peace with. 4 days later, Kira stood in Section 60 of Arlington National Cemetery. The morning was cold and clear. Frost still clung to the grass between the endless rows of white headstones. The sky was the pale blue of winter, cloudless and infinite. Jay stood beside her in his dress blues, his hand warm in hers. Behind them, SEAL Team 5 formed a semicircle. 11 warriors in ceremonial uniforms, their faces solemn, their postures rigid with respect. Silas stood apart, his gray hair bright in the morning sun, his weathered face unreadable. Master Chief Nathaniel Brennan's headstone was simple, white marble, clean lines. Master Chief Nathaniel Flint, Brennan United States Navy SEAL Team, 1968, 2006, killed in action. Ramadi Iraq, beloved husband, and Father Kira knelt on the frozen ground, the velvet box containing her father's Navy cross clutched in her hand. She placed the medal on the cold marble, beside the small American flag that someone had planted there years ago. "Hi, Dad." Her voice was steady, stronger than she had expected. "I know it has been a while since I visited. I am sorry about that. I guess I was not ready. Was not ready to face what happened. To accept that you were really gone." She paused, gathering herself. "But I am ready now. And I have some things I need to tell you." The wind picked up, carrying the faint scent of cut grass and distant rain. "I found out the truth about Ramadi, about what really happened to you, about who was responsible." Her voice hardened. "His name was Victor Ashford. He sold you out for $50,000, sent you and your team into an ambush, watched you die, and then stood at your funeral and called you a hero." She took a breath. "He is dead now, Dad. I killed him. With your rifle. The one you taught me to shoot. The one Silas kept all these years because he knew somehow that I would need it." Kira felt Jace's hand tighten on her shoulder, drawing strength from his presence. "I know you would tell me that revenge is not the answer, that justice is bigger than one person's anger, and you would be right." She looked at the headstone, at the name carved in stone. But it was not just revenge. It was justice. For you. For all the men who died because of his greed. For everyone he betrayed. She touched the cold marble, tracing the letters of his name. "You taught me everything, Dad. How to shoot, how to fight, how to survive. But more than that, you taught me who I am. You taught me that being underestimated is a weapon, that patience and discipline matter more than size or strength, that the people everyone underestimates are the ones who change history." Her voice cracked. "I lost you when I was 8 years old, and for 18 years I carried that loss like a stone in my chest, wondering if I would ever be strong enough, brave enough, worthy enough of being your daughter." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "Now I know. I am your daughter, in every way that matters, and I will spend the rest of my life honoring that." Kira stood slowly, looked at the headstone one last time. "Rest now, Dad. You have earned it. The man who killed you is dead. Your brothers are safe, and your little girl grew up to be exactly what you always knew she could be." She stepped back, stood at attention. Behind her, SEAL Team 5 rendered a final salute. Crisp, perfect, a warrior's farewell. Silas stepped forward, his voice rough with emotion. "Nathaniel always told me his daughter would change the world someday." He looked at Kira. He was right. Somewhere in the distance, a bugler began playing taps, the mournful notes floating across the sacred ground. Rising into the winter sky, Kira closed her eyes, let the music wash over her. 20 years of grief, 20 years of questions, 20 years of wondering if she could ever fill the void her father had left behind. Now she knew. She could not fill it, but she could honor it. When she opened her eyes again, the sun was higher, the day brighter. Jace took her hand. Together they walked between the rows of white headstones, leaving the past behind, stepping into whatever future awaited. Behind them, SEAL Team 5 remained at attention, a final tribute to their fallen brother. And somewhere watching over them all, Master Chief Nathaniel Brennan smiled. His daughter had made him proud. His legacy would live on. The dead could rest now. The living had work to do. And Kira Ashlyn Brennan, daughter of a hero, was ready to begin.